Commander's Log, November 28, 3037. I've spent the last few days on Galilei Ring in the 6 Andromeda system. Similar in many ways to Sol, several inner rocky planets are separated from a couple of gas giants by a rocky asteroid belt. After recently declaring independence from the Federation, 6 Andromeda, home to around 20 million citizens, is now governed by the Loose Screws network. An independent corporate faction based out of Ross 310, Loose Screws have only been active in 6 Andromeda for a couple of months. Yet, somehow, they were able to displace the local federally aligned Democrats Party in just a matter of weeks, and have been running the system ever since. Things have certainly not been going well for the Federation over the last few months. My new ship, the Venture, has arrived. It's a Zorgan-Peterson hauler which boasts significantly improved jump range over the Icarus. It should be ideal for my first foray into exploration. I've decided to place the Icarus into storage for now. It's a great little ship, and I'm sure I'm not quite done with it yet. I overheard a couple of explorers in the bar talking about an engineer that offers upgrade services to explorers. Elivra Martuuk's specialties include frameshift drives, thrusters, and shield generators. After buying them a round of Lavian brandy, I was able to learn that Martuuk doesn't deal with just anyone. You need to prove you're serious about exploration. If you haven't travelled any farther than 300 light years, she won't even speak to you, and usually asks a small favour in return before she grants access to her base. I dropped into Pioneer Supplies and purchased both an Artemis and Maverick suits. The Artemis is the go-to for exobiologists and comes with an integrated genetic sampler. The Maverick is more for salvage and operations, but may come in handy should I come across any abandoned wrecks while out there exploring. Both are the basic Grade 1 models, but I'll be keeping an eye out for more advanced versions on my travels. There's an interesting place I know of called Titus Station. It's a fair way out of the bubble in the HIP 8396 system, and is hopefully a remote enough destination to get me a sit down with Martuuk. Titus always sounded like an interesting place to visit, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of places to explore along the way. The Venture also has a frameshift wake scanner installed. Scanning frameshift wakes not only reveals the system in which the ship jumped to, but you can often extract readings that can be used to tune your frameshift drive. The more readings I can gather, the more chance Martuuk will be able to assist me in upgrading my own drives. Busy starports like Galilei Ring or navigation beacons fit the bill. I've heard that aid distribution centres around famine and outbreak systems are also useful places to look due to the high volumes of traffic. My first stop will be the 3 outer moons of the 6th planet here in 6 Andromedae. All show strong biological readings, so will be an ideal opportunity to test the SRV and Artemis suit before setting off on the journey to Titus. Performing a detailed surface scan highlights the areas biological signals can be found, as well as revealing signal sources located on the surface. I targeted a crash site signal and started my descent. The signal also indicated ongoing activity in the area, so I would have to stay alert. Smoke was still rising from the crash site as I set the Venture down about half a click south. Some light resistance was encountered on the way to the wreckage. The Diamondbacks swooped in and dropped off a small group of fighters. Fortunately, they were no match for the Scarab's dual repeater cannons and were easily neutralised. There was a variety of salvageable materials scattered around the downed Federal fighter, and I was able to download some encoded materials from the ship's data core. More items were obtained by cutting away the panel behind the cockpit with the arc cutter of the Maverick suit. I was unable to access a locked container nearby without an e-breach, so I had to leave it. I'll make a note to pick some up next time I visit Pioneer Supplies in an Anarchy system. Once I had salvaged what I could from the wreck, I set out in search of biological samples. 3 separate genetic scans need to be taken across a minimum distance. The distance between samples fluctuates slightly depending on the species being tested. It is also worth remembering to perform a composition scan once for each species per system to ensure the codex is updated and to claim the small discovery reward. Raw materials required for engineering are relatively abundant on planetary surfaces. Each surface point of interest has a distinct signature on the SLV scanner, which indicates its type. Signals in the top half indicate larger man-made objects such as ships, wreckage and installations. Meteorites and geological features containing raw materials appear in the bottom half of the scanner. Metallic meteorites consistently yield the highest grade raw materials. Their signal appears as a couple of horizontal lines, the lower of which being right at the bottom of the scanner and the higher about a third of the way up. They usually contain at least one fragment of the planet's grade 4 material. I've found 4 fragments of a grade 4 material within a single metallic meteorite, but that appears to be very rare. Metallic meteorites can also sometimes be found in clusters of 3. Mesosideurites, outcrops and bronzite chondrites usually contain low to medium grade materials. All can yield the occasional high grade material, but I'll need to analyse a wider sample to determine how common this is for each. After completing surveys of the 3 outer moons of 6 Andromedae 6, I set off towards HIP 8396.
You're here to help us further our research. Vista strives to learn everything it can about the cosmos.
Don't want to be caught unprepared.
I made a point to visit the Pioneer Supplies outlets and as many stations as I could along the route. I was looking for higher grade versions of equipment which you can occasionally find on sale.
Good choice.
A grade 3 suit will set you back around 4 million credits, so they're not cheap. But a roughly 50% increase in suit stats minus the effort of manually obtaining the materials to upgrade it yourself is well worth it in my opinion.
Artemis is the perfect choice of suit.
The strategy paid off and I was able to obtain grade 3 versions of each suit and even managed to pick up a couple of grade 3 weapons. I visited several worlds along the route, but most notable was HIP 3587-11A. One of 2 icy moons in a shared orbit of a ringed gas giant, I was investigating signs of geological activity in proximity to another crash site on the surface. The crash site turned out to be a little on the hot side to say the least. I had to fight off 3 waves of bandits in and around the debris of a crashed Eagle Mark II. After salvaging what I could, I set out exploring the stunning icy vista. The moon's horizon dominated by its rising twin and the gas giant they are orbiting. Scattered across the icy plain, I encountered a geothermal field of geysers and fumaroles releasing water vapour into the atmosphere. Precious cobbles can be harvested from most geysers, but only contain low-grade materials. You also need to wait for a break in the jet before blasting it, or it'll just end up being fired off into orbit most of the time. I've also heard stories of SRVs being blown into orbit by geysers, so you need to be careful around them. Crystalline fragments can be found attached to fumaroles and contain medium-grade materials. Rarely, they will have a needle cluster attached that contains a fragment of high-grade material. My initial observations indicate that geological features, when present, appear more abundantly but only yield single fragments of raw material. Normal surface features such as bronzite chondrites and metallic meteorites usually yield multiple. I'll need to explore more planets, but it may be that different geological features yield varying quantities and grades of materials. Another notable observation was that the moon turned out to be a rich source of both tellurium and selenium. It is unusual to find two grade 4 materials on a single planet, but selenium is the exception and can be found in features that normally only yield medium level raw materials. One can extrapolate that worlds containing selenium should yield far larger quantities of grade 4 materials than those that do not. Therefore, it would make sense to prioritise worlds containing selenium for material gathering purposes, especially as any surplus selenium obtained can then be traded for other required materials. I arrived at my destination in the early hours of December 12th. HIP 8396 is an F-class white star containing an asteroid belt and 2 ringed gas giants. Titus station is located within the rings of the second planet.
Frame shift drive inactive. Mass lock engaged.
The primary goal of the trip was successful, and I received an invitation from Elivra Martuuk to visit her at Longsight Base in the Kun system. She requested that I bring her 3 tons of Soontil relics, which is a rare commodity only available from the Soontil system. Along the way, the plan is to upgrade my ship to an adder. The adder is similar in many ways to the hauler, but should prove to be more versatile.
Landing coupling ready.
In direct comparison to the hauler, it has an extra internal compartment and more weapon hardpoints. The adder's jump range is also less affected by additional mass due to its higher class jump drive.